this is the kind of behavior that really colors people's attitudes towards the police.
Yeah. We are the Armed Attorneys. Today we're talking about a fun one. This came to us from the folks over on Twitter. It's a viral clip of a mother telling some ATF agents to pound sand. Now, this happened a little while ago, but it just went viral over the weekend. But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at BulletSafe.
Think of the perfect body armor, concealable and discreet, lightweight, comfortable and breathable design, full range of motion. That's what I think of when I think of BulletSafe. BulletSafe aims to be the #1 provider of body armor and personal security products for law enforcement and civilian usage. If you're looking for top quality bulletproof vest at the perfect price, check them out at BulletSafe.com, linked in the description below, and use the code ARMED10 to receive a 10% discount.
Now, there's a couple of clips here that we have to show you to give you a little bit of context. This first one pretty much sets it up.
An unmarked police car, which turns out to be an ATF vehicle, pulls up out of nowhere with an agent and a police officer trying to have the teens come outside for questioning.
Tell them to come out here for a second. Those fellas that just walked in, can you send them out to talk to us, please? Because I need to talk to them.
What's the problem? They was taking my daughter from the bus.
I need to go talk to them. What's the problem? Right now. I need to talk to them. Right now.
What did they do?
They were walking in the middle of the street, and I need to talk to them. So please send them out here.
What do you mean? Well, they just crossed over.
Man, this isn't up for debate. They need to come
I'm not
outside.
arguing with you.
You are. You
Yes,
absolutely
I
are.
was watching on my window, and they literally just crossed over.
Yeah, they crossed over in not a crosswalk. So please send them outside for me.
There's no crosswalk over
97.
here.
Excuse me? I've been trying to talk to you, and you've done
What is your name, sir? You still don't want to tell me your name?
Alright, when you're done...
Okay, you don't want to tell me your name.
When you're done screaming, I'll talk to you. When you're done screaming, I'll talk to
I'm asking
you.
for your name and your
Do you
badge
see how
number.
loud I'm talking?
entitled to
Do you
get
see how loud I'm talking? You're going to raise your voice? That's fine, man. You can
You
report
have to
it.
give
It's
me your
fine.
name and your badge number. I'm entitled to know your name and your badge number.
6347.
What is your name?
6347.
Now, as you can see here, you see the teens crossing the roadway, the kind of car screech up to the front. Some officers jump out and talk to the mom. This is a little bit unusual for ATF to be involved in jaywalking investigations.
Well, yes, and the one thing that struck me is that this is the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Like this is school time. These are not people who are prowling through the back alleys in the middle of the night, engaged in suspicious activity. These are 3 teenagers walking to their house in the middle of the day. And yeah, the car comes in with its, light because it's obviously not a marked patrol car. And the fact that the ATF got involved in this is unexplainable.
Yeah. Now, for a little bit of context, could police, do they have reasonable suspicion that the teens committed a crime, potentially jaywalking? Maybe. And if they had encountered them on the side of the road, I think there would be reasonable suspicion to temporarily detain them, ask them, kind of what's going on, confirm their suspicions, maybe develop probable cause and issuing a citation for jaywalking. But it changes a little bit. Once they're inside the house, do they get added legal protections?
Well, the thing about this, what sort of gives this or has allowed this to be created, this situation to be created, is the fact that there are so many laws out there regulating the most minutia of human behavior, and that the courts, the Supreme Court, has allowed what the police call pretextual stops. Which means that, yeah, if they find that you break one of these little relatively insignificant laws, they can stop you and basically attempt to question you, for as long as quote unquote reasonable. That's what happened here. Is they said they crossed the street, I guess not an intersection, because they initially said they didn't do it in a crosswalk.
Right.
And as the mother points out, there is no crosswalk.
Right.
And so they would have to say, well, you need to cross at an intersection. Which, again, that's just one of those ticky-tack laws that the police can enforce when they want to, and they can ignore when they want to.
And I think that's a good point. And this happens most contexts as this comes up on the roadway. But I mean, you talk to any beat cop and they'll tell you, everybody's going to commit a traffic offense at some point. They just follow you until it happens.
Oh, yeah. And one would think that being a pedestrian, you're kind of insulated from this. But one that we see a lot enforced is walking in the street where sidewalk provided.
Oh yeah.
So that's, I mean, that's a law. So
Or the other one I like is in Texas, we have obstructing a highway, which means if you're standing still on a sidewalk or a roadway, I mean, it could literally be anything. I mean, they'd get you for anything.
yeah, and like I said, it just goes. It comes as a result that the legislature believes that to justify their jobs, they have to literally scrutinize and ultimately criminalize most innocuous, relatively harmless behaviors.
But let's go back just a little bit. So the moment they go into the house, the door closes. Do the teens have added protections under the Constitution?
Yes, the police can't enter their house. There's only a few circumstances under which the police can enter their house. None of those are present in this situation. They could go into the house if they were pursuing a fleeing felon.
Yeah, let's say the cops
Obviously-
observed a felony and then they were, in hot pursuit chasing these guys.
Yes, if they had actually observed the teens shoot somebody and then run to a house, they could pursue that. Or they could go into the house due to exigent circumstances, which most of the times are limited to things that either the police can observe or the police can hear, such as somebody crying for help in the back, something like that, that would be urgent that they would need to act. Otherwise, in order to enter somebody's house, they got to get a warrant.
And one other big exception for how the police get into someone's house is consent. Now, the mom in this case is having none of that. And so we don't see consent granted in this video.
No. And in fact, consent is probably one of the biggest exceptions to the Fourth Amendment, because the police, they either try to persuade or cajole, or in this case, actually threaten and order somebody to give consent. But you have to remember that if you give consent to a police officer to either question you or come into your house or search your car, you basically waived any kind of Fourth Amendment argument after that.
Yeah. And the way that I think there are some best practices when it comes to refusing consent. I think saying, hey, I do not consent to any searches or seizures, but if you have a warrant, obviously I'm not going to interfere with you executing the search warrant. I think that's kind of the best practice here, because we don't want to tiptoe into territory where we're, obstructing or maybe resisting, but at the same time, preserving our constitutional rights to be free from unreasonable search and seizures. They need to get a warrant.
Yes. And in this case, the mother was ultimately given a citation for obstructing. And the thing about it is, if you read the Ohio statute, I think where the failure of the police comes in is that it has to be an authorized act by the police. And I don't see how they were authorized by anything to engage in the action that she's accused of obstructing.
Yeah, what the Ohio law says essentially is that no person without privilege to do so and with the purpose to prevent, obstruct, or delay the performance by a public official of any authorized act within the public official's official capacity shall do any act that hampers or impedes the public official in the performance of the public official's lawful duties. Wow. Can we say public official more times? But I think it's clear to hear that if she is exercising a constitutional right, a right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure, where normally a warrant would be required, I mean, does that sound like they're obstructing the official?
Well, it sounds like she has a privilege. And so there's 3 points in this statute, which are subject to examination. Does she have a privilege? Yes, I think she has a Fourth Amendment privilege. Are they engaged in an act that is an authorized act? I don't think it is. And then it says in the performance of the public official's lawful duties.
Right.
So it only covers police officers when they're actually engaged in things that are not against the law. And I guess they could say, well, we're allowed to cajole people into consenting.
Demand.
And she didn't consent.
Yeah, throw that up on screen, because at one point in time, there's 12 officers here. I mean, they're obviously trying to scare the heck out of her.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, and the thing about it is that obviously we don't want to appear to be anti-police or anything, but this is the kind of behavior that really colors people's attitudes towards the police.
Yeah.
And so whenever you kind of act like a bully and you try to use a show of force in this situation for something that's so innocuous, they clearly only wanted to harass and intimidate these teenagers. So, what purpose did it serve? Now, of course, the chief later on had a very interesting attempted explanation as to why talking to these teens were important. What was it?
Yeah, so this is from Fox 8, and this comes out of an official complaint from Mary Hildreth, the mother in this situation. She filed a complaint against the police department for, basically their behavior in this. I mean, it is outrageous behavior. But the police chief here, in response to her complaint, is saying, hey, look, they thought these teens were carrying guns by the way that they're walking and their gait, and they're not swinging their arms. And, he was saying that they were basically investigating a firearms crime.
Yeah, which is insane that they would try to attempt to say this. First of all, it's February in Ohio.
Right.
So they're wearing big coats, and they probably had their hands in their pockets because they were cold.
Right.
And, when your hands are in your pocket and you're wearing a big coat, you're not swinging your arms.
No.
They're not out in, happy summertime, jaunting along down to the public park. They're freaking cold, and they're walking with their hands in their pocket and a big coat. The explanation in this just does not even, you talk about not passing the smell test.
No.
He clearly is making an excuse after the fact.
Yeah, but good on Mary Hildreth. And this is an important lesson for the Second Amendment community. Not consenting to any searches, not consenting to any seizures, asserting your constitutional rights. There's better ways to do it than others. Think about this. This is the way that I always talk to my clients, because everything is video recorded. Everything was recorded in this scenario. Think about this getting, an exhibit sticker slapped on this video and published in front of a jury. You're telling that story to a jury, and maybe whether evidence gets excluded or not excluded. And you want to look like the reasonable person, the person who's, being polite, asserting their rights, doing the right thing. Because I will say, this one, the cops definitely look like bullies in this one.
Well, yes, and I think that we need to maybe re-examine the ATF's role in this, and it certainly is what makes it applicable to our channel here. Why is the ATF involved in this type of traffic stop? Shouldn't the ATF be out there trying to shut down the cartel from smuggling guns either in or out of America? Shouldn't the ATF out there be looking for terrorists who are building bombs? Shouldn't the ATF be out there looking for a guy, selling stolen firearms out of the back of his trunk?
No.
I mean,
jaywalking.
Jaywalking is where and he appeared to be in full ATF gear.
Yeah.
I mean, he was all geared up like he was going on was fixing to lay siege to the Waco compound.
Yeah, but no dogs were injured in the filming of this video as far as we know, but we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video. And make sure to question and comment down below. We found this video from one of y'all's comments over on Twitter. And until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys. That'll be a fun one.